guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, got a new project. Many of y'all know I just recently got a new little electric scooter, and we were putting it together, and I made the comment of maybe putting a 2-cycle engine on it or a coiler or something. Well, I got a bicycle kit. Got an 80cc CU Tech bicycle kit, and this is what we're going to plan to put on the collapsible scooter. I'm going to make a little engine mount, the back tire, and that way it can come off of there and go back on there when we need it to be. The batteries for the electric scooter are about 120, 130 bucks. And that was about the same price as this. And it says you can get 150 miles to a tank full. So I was figuring, you know, that might be a pretty good idea. Plus it's 2-cycle, and we all know I love 2-cycle. So, did get a pull start for it. We're gonna have to take it apart and give it a little bit of love. It's scraping in there, and I don't understand why, but because all this stuff needs to be red and blue Loctite too. So. But without further ado, let's get in this little kit and see what we got. Kind of opened it up, kind of check it out what I got from. I did get it from the Jungle website. So, let's see what I got here. Comes with your putting it on a bike. Little setup kit, owner's manual. I've been seeing that a lot of people don't get owner's manuals, but I mean, it's all there, as you can see. It seems like this brand seems like it might be a little pretty good. Let's get our accessory box out and see what we got in the accessory box. And tell you what, let's go ahead and get the tank out. Here's the little fuel tank to get with it. Figure out some kind of mount for it. It's pretty nice. Don't have any dings on it or anything. It's pretty straight. We'll say, let's see here. Got carburetor. That's cute. Yeah, I don't know. Which do you think? That one or that one? Get more performance out of this one with the expansion chamber. But that's the stock carb, and this is the performance carb, so we may use this on there. Get a nice little expansion chamber for it. I hope. Power on it a good bit. Let's see. Here's the coil. Kind of lightweight. I don't think there's that many windings in there, but I do have that Technology wire we might be able to stick on here. Might help us out a good bit. Let's try that too. Let's go ahead and get this motor out of here. Box off the desk. There it is. CU Tech. So some people say on the YouTube that if you got a low pull piston, it's like a 66 cc, and then a high pull on the piston is an 80 cc. So they say 80, 60, 60 cc. But yeah, we'll have to get into that and see which one we got. Kind of like to go through these things, you know, anything that's made from a distant land, I always like to take it apart and make sure things are straight on it before we put it on the unit. Overall, I mean, just first glance looking at it, looks pretty good. Looks pretty good quality. I've always noticed that the ones that have the 6 dots on the sides, I've heard those are really pretty good cylinders. So we'll see if we have to do any port cleaning or what have you on that. We're going to check the head bolts and all, of course. Kind of just do a once over on it and make sure it's straight before we put it on the actual unit. of that here pretty soon. They did give me a free Speedo here. I'll have to figure out how we're going to mount that on my scooter. Got a little miles per hour, 60 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour. I'd be happy with 30 because I got a 3-wheeler and I don't want to get tipsy-topsy on the 3-wheeler. May have to make a set of training wheels for it. There's the little cable for it and the actual mount that goes on top. It would be like on a bicycle rim type thing, which we may use a bicycle back tire of some kind, or we maybe just use them. This setup here with the sprocket on. Put the sprocket on here. This is a 25 tooth sprocket chain size, and it says it comes with a 415. So we may put the 415 on here and just build up a little, like a little power setup like this here, and somehow attach it to the scooter. All right, let's see what else we got here. We got some handle grips and accessory. Got a little spark plug and spark plug tool, petcock, and the fuel line, clutch springs, and a gas cap. Pretty nice gas cap. There's the rest of the hardware if you're mounting it to a bicycle. I will say that this kit that I've been looking at here seems like it's pretty good quality. Maybe we won't do too much cleanup on that engine on the inside. Here's the dreadful tensioner, chain tensioner, which we probably won't have to use on the little scooter that we're going to build. Here's your on-off switch, kill switch. There. We have to extend that up just to here. And that's for the throttle cable too. There's our clutch engagement for the clutch. Got a little thing on the side that sets your clutch. So when you get it running, let it go. Know where to go. So that'll be pretty neat. Here's your cables. There's your throttle cable and a clutch cable wrapped up together. And a little chain guard that we probably won't use. And here's our chain. Here's our 415 chain. Oh yeah, that's some serious chain. Pretty sure it comes with master link right there. And let's see what else we got in here. Here's the muffler right here. Pretty nice. Where is my sprocket at? Must be still in the box. Look for a sprocket. Down in here, another muffler clamp there. Sprocket. Needs a pretty big sprocket. Let's see how it matches up against the wheel. Oh yeah. There we go. That'll work on there. I like the idea of this. 2 bolts right there. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. That'll work. Alright. So there's our drive. So we're just going to have to figure out some kind of cradle to build for this thing. They do sell an engine mount you can get for this for like working on it. And it also looks like you can actually bolt it to something. So we may get that, or we may build some kind of mount. So I have an old mini bike frame that we had before. I may try to use that and maybe weld a piece of plate on the bottom or something for an engine mount or something. Yeah, let's get this stuff put back up. Kind of look at this engine here. This ought to be pretty neat on there, I think. It says this motor has 8.5 to 1 compression. As I say, you have to get moving in order to get this thing to go, but I think with a little bit more compression, you won't have to worry about that problem. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We'll be back on the CU Tech motorized pocket bike engine. Previous video we kind of went over the ignition system and showed you the inside where the clutch is, and we looked at the front seal. What we're going to do today is we're going to take these head bolts off and look at the head and look at the jug, see what kind of port cleaning we need to do as far as the intake and the exhaust and on the transfer ports, and see what we need to do in order to up the compression. Compression is 6.8 to 1. We at least need it up to about 10 to 1 to make some pretty good power, and you can still pull that over with your pull start. This is on my 54cc pocket bike engine that I just got the recent flat top piston. It's got really good compression. It's up there high, and it runs good. So that's what we're going to do with this. Without further ado, let's get in here and get these head bolts off of here. Kind of loosen these up freehand. It's kind of like looking up stuff. Seeing what we got to do ahead of time. They offer all kinds of different cylinder heads you can get for these. You get billet heads and dish heads and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think the stock head might be pretty good. You could probably mill some of that off there to build up the compression, and what that does is that closes up your combustion chamber up here. It makes the CC up here smaller. Builds up your compression. That thing is all this black paint on here. I don't know what this stuff is, but that's actually going to hold in heat a little bit. I think I would maybe try to get this stuff off of here if we could. Maybe put some paint stripper on it to try to get back to the aluminum finish, because that kind of paint kind of holds heat. They have ceramic coatings you can get for cylinders and jugs and stuff, and it's supposed to dissipate the heat, but I know a lot of paint kind of hold in the heat. Alright, so let's get this thing up on TDC. Spin this thing around. Pull in that clutch. Spin this thing around. All the way up. Yeah, see, it's actually head gasket off of here. Another thing you can do is you can get copper head gaskets, and you can anneal them. If you don't know what annealing is, all it is you put it on the stove for like 4 or 5 minutes until it changes color all the way around, and you can drop it in some water, and then what it does is it makes this real soft and pliable, and it actually gives you a better squish rate on top of it. Yeah, we're actually there inside the bore on the outsides, but I know across the center it's going to be out of the bore. See how much we're out of the bore? Right there. Where's it there? So, alright. Just go over it. Alright, so let's pull this thing off of here. That's this side. That way we can look at our cylinder and our transfer ports. Look on the inside of our cylinder here. And got a little bit over there on that one side, on that intake over here on this side to clean up. And the rest of it looks pretty good on that. I noticed on the exhaust up here, we got a little bit to clean up there. You know, on the bottom. You don't want to go crazy on the porting, you just want to clean it up. You can probably get away with like a flapper wheel disc that you get like from Napa. They're only like $2-3. And you just stick it in there and kind of clean them up. You don't want to go crazy on this stuff. Transfer ports. Just looking for any kind of auxiliary metal that's hanging inside the port or inside the actual transfer port. Kind of like down here on the bottom right here in that corner. There's some metal there we can take out right there. Just kind of want to clean it up. Yeah, there's more metal down over there and the other side right there, the casting. Clean that up. Overall, the cylinder looks pretty good. Alright. And that's a 10 millimeter wrist pin is what that is. That's not a 12. Okay. This piston doesn't look too shabby. Don't look too bad. The lower end looks pretty good. Kind of look down there at the bottom, the transfer port down there at the bottom of the case. Let's see if we have anything we need to clean up on the case side, which looks okay. And then on here, you can see it says FR 80 on it. This is a true 80 cc, which is good. And try to get that wrist pin and all out of there to see what kind of piston we got. The rings, you can get different pistons for it. You just have to figure out where your pins are and where your piston rings, and just it looks like they're over here on the side over here. There, and I got one over here, and I can get different pistons for them that have thinner rings that will take up the friction because they're thinner. A lot of them usually just have one piston ring, like on dirt bike you usually just have like one piston ring, and makes a little bit more power, a little bit more compression. You can get pop-up pistons instead of these dome pistons. What they are, they're a flat piston that has just a little raise on it in the center, and it's actually meant for high compression. But I think what I'll do now is we'll take these case studs out of here, and get this gasket out of here so we don't mess it up, and then we'll just kind of go over this piston here. So the way you can do it in order to get these studs out of here, just put you a nut on there, take you another nut, put on top of it. More or less you're kind of making a jam nut, more or less. You can spin those head studs out of there. Like on the clutch yesterday, you can get upgraded clutch stuff, like shoes and stuff. I have them, you can get them. So I mean, all in your personal preference about what you want to do with your motor. Just trying to make this thing live and get this thing on the scooter and make it live a little while. Longevity. Yeah, see that thing's already loose. Look at that. Wow. Longevity. I'll be able to spin that up with my hand. I wonder if that thing was even down in there at all. Huh. Makes you wonder. think it was down in there at all. That's crazy. Good thing to do is when you get all this out of here, stuff some paper towels down in there after you get the piston out and get the gasket off. Figure out what pitch thread this is and go back and chase these threads with the tap. Might be a good idea. Where's my socket at? Like I said, I mean, I barely had any torque on it at all. Just getting that head stud out of there. You can get you some head studs that are 308 stainless steel that are better than these, and that will help with better compression. Another good reason why you have head studs is it gives you a better torque value. Look at this, guys. Look at this. That thing's barely in there. These are all these head studs are barely in there. What is up with that? Yeah, this is why you check this stuff. That is why you check it. That means to tell me that those things are only biting with a couple threads. Good thing we checked it. That's why I always tear stuff like this stuff down. Make sure we're going to be able to make this thing function. You could actually lose compression that way if it wasn't getting a good torque value on the cylinder head. They throw these things together so fast, it's crazy. So you gotta have a good engine builder kind of go over this stuff for you. Let's see how many threads we got in there. Yeah, we maybe got 4 or 5 threads down on this one. It wasn't even down in there that far. That's just totally crazy. Really crazy. Okay. Like I said, look at, I didn't loosen these up and they were already like that. So, well, makes you wonder. One thing that I like doing is when I put case studs in, is I like to put some red Loctite on them. You know, everybody has personal preferences on what they want to do with their motors. But what I like to do is I like to use a little bit of red Loctite on the bottoms of the threads. That way I know it ensures that the stud's in there. It's not going to come out. It's not going to back out. If you don't want to use red, you can use blue, you can use orange, whatever you want to use. It's up to you. Personally, I like to use red. All you gotta do is just run them down in there until they just basically touch, and let it dry for 24 hours, and the thread locker will actually lock it in there until when you go to torque it down, you'll actually get a little bit better torque value on this stud. Because on an actual stud, you're actually drawing it down on there versus a regular old head bolt, which you're actually stretching the head bolt, believe it or not. Because that's why a lot of the cylinder heads you hear about, they're all stretch bolts. That's what that means. You're actually stretching it. I'm really happy that I did this. Yep. I don't have much thread on this one either. I didn't have 3/4 threads on that one. Trying to make it last. Those are 8mm studs. Okay. Head studs out. Take your head gasket out. And your base gasket. We're putting some Permatex Moto Seal on that. Another thing you can do to bump up the compression a little bit more is not even run a base gasket. Just depending on how thick your head gasket is, you can mic this, and you can mic this to see where you are, and you can assemble it with no rings on the piston, and put your jug back on there and put some studs back in it, and then what you do is you just roll the engine over and see if you get any cylinder head bump. And if you get a cylinder head bump, then all you have to do is just put a little bit thinner head gasket on base gasket on it, or thicker, depending on what the bump is and what your squish ratio is, because these things have a squish factor on them too. So it's all in a matter of how you go about doing this stuff. And that is I thought it was going to be a 12 millimeter wrist pin, but it's an actual 10. Wow, that's crazy. Got loppy hairs here. I'm going to get that out of there. My needle nose, my cheap needle nose twisted and broke on me the other day. I do have another pair somewhere. Not nearly as good as those are, but we'll get that thing out of there. But like I said, on the rings, there's your pins. There's one there, and it looks like there's one over here too. And all that does is it keeps the ring in there. Pretty sure these pistons are cast pistons. I've seen a lot of the videos where the tops up here, guys run them and they blow the center of the piston out. Which actually this piston here looks pretty good. Still got some ridges on the piston here, on the sides of the cylinder walls. What that does is it actually keeps oil on the cylinder, because in a piston cylinder setup, the rings are supposed to make all the compression, and the piston's never supposed to touch the side of the wall to wear out the skirt. And check this all out. In here, got little raises, a little bit of raising on the sides. You can knock that down real easily. Just take your piston off and stick some paper towel down in there and just kind of go over it. And we need to find us a tap, whatever size tap this is. I think it's like 8.2125. It's not 50 or not 75. So it's probably 8.125. It's probably the pitch thread on that. Can't get that pin out of there. I did find this place on Amazon. It's called Little Red Barn. They do chainsaw engine stuff for like Husqvarna and Steel and stuff. And not sponsored or anything, but they always have some good parts there. And the last piston I got for my pocket bike engine was a flat top Husqvarna chainsaw piston. It was 44 millimeter, and it worked really good on that. So check them out. They're on either eBay or the Jungle website. Let me get this thing off of here and check him out. What's he's up to? 10mm wrist pin. Get your old needle bearing out of there. Okay. There's your long block, as we called back in the day. And, pretty good in there. Got some really small transfer ports on it. You can see transfer ports are kind of small side. Down in there to the rod. Piston. Smells like that old Cosmoline oil that they used back in the day. An oil hole up here, there, and one there for oil. Okay. And take the mic. That's that pin. Yeah, see, it's right on 10, so that's a 10mm setup. Other thing I want to show you, so if you took about the center of this hole to the very tip top of the piston, that'll call your compression height. So a lot of times when you order pistons, you have to kind of figure out what your compression height is on your setups. A lot of them, these motors, they say they have a low hole and a high hole, and I believe, since that thing's got a long rod in it, this is the long rod version, it's going to have a lower piston instead of it being a high. A lot of times the holes are actually in this inside of the ring gland. Actually, I've seen them in there too. This is a pretty heavy piston. It says H80 on the side. Confirms it's an 80cc. It's not a windowed piston either. There's no window in this actual piston. So maybe the next one will actually have a window in it. And that's all that does is it's just for port timing. Is how fast it cuts off the flow to the cylinder for fuel. There's your intake there. Yeah. Because it feeds on the bottom side of the port. So like say if you had a window down here, so all it does is when it comes up and it comes back down, it'll cut the feed off of the fuel off to make the charge. Okay. Clean all this stuff up. Yeah. All right. And this is a 47mm piston. You can make it right on 47mm. So you could probably get a dirt bike piston. It'd be like a one ring, like a 1.5mm ring, dirt bike piston, single ring with a pop up on the top. Make good compression. This is pretty low compression. Like I said, you can mess with your base seals and your head gaskets to build compression, and also your piston has a lot to do with it too. But pretty much gone over this old engine. Like I said, you cannot need burrs down. It's got a little bit of a burr, I feel, on there. Even on these holes for the studs, it's got like a little bit of a burr. I can drag my finger across it and feel a little bit of a burr on. But you can take that out. And like I said, you just put a paper towel down in here and gently go over it with like a little file or even a piece of sandpaper. Don't gouge it really, really deep in there. You're not trying to mill it down more or less. You want to get that burr off of each side. And like as far as these head studs goes, a lot of times they have a machine thread and a coarse thread, but on these it looks like they got a coarse thread on both sides. Let's see here. Yeah, those look like they're all coarse thread on there. I said I'm gonna have to look in my engine box to see if I actually have a tap. I might have one. It's actually 8mm by 125. I think is the pitch, thread pitch. Let's see here. Sometimes we'll actually say on the tab. This is 8mm by 1. 8 by 1. There is a 15/16 by 18. Is that what it is? No. No, I didn't use that on there. Come on, guys. Really? Let's see over there. That's an 8 by 125 right here. Yeah, 8 by 125, just like I said it would. Be a good idea to instead put some paper towels down in there and chase these threads. Just run them all the way down until they stop, back them out, and blow them out with some compressed air and some cleaning solvent. And then that way you can ensure that you've got good clean holes for your studs. Another thing is kind of like when you're working on cars and trucks and all, don't ever get oil or water down underneath the stud. What can happen is you can start the bolt up with the stud up, and it'll actually hydraulic in the actual bore, and what it does inside the bore, it'll go to like the weakest part of the casting, and it'll actually crack the block of the case. And then on top of it, if it doesn't do that, what it'll do is you think that you'll have it torqued, and it really won't be torqued, and you can be able to turn it out with your hand. You won't get a good torque value on that. But this is Dave with Davidwickhamrc on projects. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are they doing with this stuff? Yeah, you're gonna have to put some moto seal on that. I don't like that at all. What is up with that? Wow. But if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Thumbs up is always good. And guys, we will see you in the next one.